morning, students. Now we are learning the lesson, the earth and the moon. Today we are going to learn about the formation of tides. The moon pulls water in earth's oceans and seas towards itself. This pulling, due to the pulling of this, due to the attractive force of that moon, the levels of the water in seas are rising, and this causes the sea levels rise and falls regularly. What are tides? Rising and falling of sea levels in Earth's surface due to the pulling of moon is called tides. So what are tides? The regular rising and falling of sea levels in Earth's surface due to the pulling of the moon is called the tides. When the moon pulls the sea level, the level of the water increases and the water in the oceans and seas come closer to the land. That we call it as high tide. This high tide, due to the pulling of the moon, the sea levels increases and that come close near to the land, and that we call it as high tide. And due to the fall of this sea level, we can see so many land on the places near the beaches, and that type of tide is called a low tide. Due to the pulling of moon, and due to the pulling of moon, two types of tides are happening, that is high tide and low tide. High tide means the rising of seawater and that it reaches near to the shore, that we call it as high tide. And what is low tide? The falling of the sea level. That means we can see more of land space near the beaches and all, that we call it as low tides. Next coming, spring tides and neap tides. There are two more tides are there, spring tides and neap tides. Spring tides and neap tides. High tide, low tide we learned. Now we are going to learn about spring tides and neap tides. The combined effect of the sun and the moon pulls the seawater much higher. Than as usual, and that we call it as spring tide. So on new moon day and full moon day, sun, earth and moon are coming in one line, and there is a combination of the pulling of sun and moon happening, and due to that the high tides will happening. Due to the combined pulling of this sun and moon, there is high tides will happening, and that large tides are called spring tides. What is neap tides? During quarter moon, the sun pulls the sea level in one direction and the moon pulls the sea level in another direction. So what will happen? So there are the lowest at quarter moon. The tides are very lowest at quarter moon. So that tides are called the neap tides. Understood? So new moon day and full moon day, spring tides are happening, and quarter moon, neap tides are happening. So that's about the formation of tides. Next coming, eclipses. You have already learned about opaque and transparent objects. What are opaque objects and what are transparent objects? Transparent objects are that allows the light to completely flows through it and pass through it. But opaque objects are blocking the traveling of light through that we call it as opaque objects. So opaque objects making shadows due to that property. That means they are not allowing the light to pass through them. So that shadows will form. Sources the lights are coming, and that light sources opposite directions, our shadows will form. And when the object is closer to the light source, it blocks more light. So the shadow formed is bigger. When the object is close to the light source, when that object, opaque object, is close to the light source, the shadows become more bigger. And when the object is far away from that light sources, the shadows will be smaller. Okay. And an eclipse occurs when Earth on the moon blocks the light coming from the sun. An eclipse is happening when Earth and moon blocks the light that coming from the sun. Because of this, a shadow is formed and either the sun or the moon seems to disappear for a short time. So that this effect, for a short time, the sun and the moon are disappearing from the sky. That we call it as eclipses. So eclipses are forming due to the shadow effect. Okay, and when Earth and moon blocking the light that coming from the sun, in that time eclipses are happening. So an eclipse occurs when Earth and the moon blocks the light coming from the sun. Because of this, a shadow is formed and either the sun or the moon seems to disappear for a short time. First we are going to learn about lunar eclipse. Two types of eclipses are there, lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. And first we are going to learn about lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse. In lunar eclipse, when Earth comes in between sun and moon, Earth comes in between sun and moon, and they are in one line. They are coming in one line. When Earth comes in between sun and moon, it blocks the rays of the sun from reaching the moon. So when Earth comes in between, when they are in a straight line and Earth comes in between sun and moon, this Earth blocks the light coming from sun to reach the moon. The shadow of Earth falls over the moon, so that the shadow of the Earth falls over the moon, so that we can't see the moon for a shorter time. The shadow of the Earth falls over the moon, and this is called a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse occurs on a full moon day, but not every full moon day. Lunar eclipse happens on full moon day, but not every full moon. So how does it happen in lunar eclipse? When Earth comes in between sun and moon, Earth blocks the light that coming from sun, so that the Earth's shadow is falling on the moon and we cannot see the moon. That we call it as lunar eclipse. Then what is solar eclipse? Solar eclipse on solar eclipse, when the moon comes in between sun and earth, sun, moon and earth. Moon is in between sun and earth. It blocks the sun rays from falling on some parts of the earth. The shadow of the moon falls on the earth. This is called a solar eclipse. In a solar eclipse, the sun disappears and the sky appears dark for a few minutes. So, during solar eclipses, we can't see sun for a certain time. That we call it as solar eclipse. So, what is the condition that solar eclipse are happening? That means they are in one line and moon should be in between sun and earth. Moon will block the light that coming from sun, and the shadow of the moon will fall on earth and we can't see the sun properly. Okay. So that we call it as solar eclipse. Solar eclipse occurs on a new moon day, but not every new moon day. Total solar eclipse when the sun is completely hidden by the moon are very rare. Total solar eclipse is very rare. Okay. Today that my children. Thank you and have a nice day.
Eclipses. There are two types of eclipses, a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. But first, do you know what an eclipse is? An eclipse occurs when an astronomical object is temporarily obscured. Sometimes the Earth is placed between the Sun and the Moon, and other times the Moon is situated between the Earth and the Sun. These are eclipses. But let's investigate it better. The lunar eclipse is when the Earth is situated between the Moon and the Sun, making the Earth block out the Sun's rays, which would be shining on the Moon, creating a shadow and darkening it. This phenomenon allows us to see the Moon in a reddish color, almost as if it were bleeding. Lunar eclipses are quite frequent and can be seen from any part of the world at nighttime. They last various hours and can be of different types, though the most frequent ones are the partial lunar eclipse and the total lunar eclipse. When there is an eclipse and it looks as if someone has taken a bite out of the Moon, it is a partial lunar eclipse. And when there is eclipse and one can see the whole Moon, it is a total eclipse. Easy, don't you think? By the way, to observe a lunar eclipse, one doesn't need anything special. A normal telescope or binoculars would do. Solar eclipses only occur when there's a new moon, and it is seen when the Moon is between the Earth and the Sun. The Moon hides all the Sun's light. To watch the full video and much more,